a record, as they say. But if you're watching the replay, this is just a short little 15-second delay as we wait for the ads to show on the actual live stream. And so as we watch the time click down, with that, we say, welcome everybody to the Car Guy and SIXFAN show. It is Thursday night. It is 7 p.m. So you guys know what that means. I'm your host this week. I am Grant Tommy, straight SIXFAN, the SIXFAN of this operation. And over to this side is...
Yeah, my name is Jason. I am the car guy of the Car Guy and SIXFAN show. Guys, welcome to what we classify as the gold standard of automotive YouTube talk shows. And you guys are part of it. And tonight is a very special event because we have one of my favorite YouTubers joining us tonight, who is a fellow Mopar activist, historian, collector, whatever you want to call him. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Dylan McCool being a part of our show tonight. Dylan, go ahead and say hi to our guests or our fans.
You made me sound so much cooler than I actually am. I appreciate that. Hello.
Well, it's right there in your name. I mean, you can't deny.
It is
cool and McCool.
I had a guy today actually say, that's not a real name, right? I said, yeah, it's real. It's totally real.
So before we get going in tonight's show, we do want to make sure that we recognize some of the people who have joined us in the chat. And it's a very small group so far. But Novotaz has joined us, Useful Entertainment as well. And we've got Frankie Hamilton. Trucker Dave is there. And I'm sure there will be many more who join in. Guys, welcome to the show. We're going to jump right into things. And I'm going to turn things over to Grant for our opening questions.
Well, yeah, and with that, just a kind of quick reminder, couple things. Well, first off, go ahead and share this link to your friends on your social media. It helps get more people in, but as long as I am hosting the Car Guy and SIXFAN show, which is every other week, that means any dollar in the super chat given tonight gets you one entry into winning this 2.5-inch Delta Flow 50 Series Flowmaster muffler. So any super chat, I try to mark that down. It gets you one entry. When I sell 180 entries, we will give this thing away. But with that, and then the only other thing I haven't ever qualified on the rules for this giveaway, grandfathered in is street car culture from Australia, but I do appreciate it if you are in the United States. I'm limiting to the United States. I could maybe be talked into Canada. Anyway, with that, as we get going, our guest, Dylan McCool, of course, Mopar aficionado, if you will. Dylan, I guess we'll go all the way back to the beginning when you decided to start a YouTube channel. What is it that ultimately kind of possessed you to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start sharing this with the world. I'm going to start putting this on the World Wide Web. What got you into YouTube?
Oh, I'll tell you. So it's actually wasn't even car related what got me into YouTube. So, well, in a sense, but what really got some traction on my channel, I was, let's see, it was 2007. And YouTube was very young, and I thought it was really cool. So I made my own channel. I was like, what do I make a video on? And I was really big into drawing. I drew like every car I could ever think of. I still do it a lot when I can, but that's what started me wanting to post a video of my drawings. So that's kind of where I got started with that. And then, believe it or not, I made lyric videos back in 2008, and those, for some reason, those got traction, and people still comment on those a lot. But what really got me into YouTube was probably about 2015, 2016, I'd say. I was kind of doing these one-off videos. I want to feature one car, and I wanted to, back then it was really big into car review channels. That was really what the big push was. So I was like, I want to do that, but I was too scared to talk on camera. So it ended up being like a 3 or 4 minute cinematic video that I was too scared to talk. So I would just film the car. So I did that for a while, and I'd say probably if you look back, it was the Scrap Truck Revival was probably the first time I talked on camera, and you can tell it in my voice how terrified I was. I was really nervous to talk, but I got through it, and we started on that truck. It was like a really short series because it wasn't mine. It was Dad's truck, and I was helping him work on it, and we put a big block in it, and then we immediately took it back out and then put it in a Warlock that you might have seen, the abandoned truck that sat for however many years. And that video got a lot of traction, a lot of views, and I was very surprised. Like, why does anybody care about this garbage Dodge truck just sitting in the weeds? So that kind of made me think, there's something to that. So the next big hit that we did was the 69 Charger, sitting for however many years, 24, and that got a lot of traction as well. So we just kept coming up with, hey, what's the next vehicle we can get that's been sitting for however many years that is something that's attainable? And that's really kind of where this Challenger, this is my right, your left, wherever you guys are, I don't know, but it's basically like where it stemmed from that. It's like, what's something that people can relate to, and they can, like this Challenger I found on a back road in the middle of Tennessee. It's just something like that, knock on the door, ask if it's for sale, but you can do that too. So that's really kind of where my channel has gone to, at least.
I want to back up just for a few seconds there. Now, I can't help but notice that you're quite a bit younger than us.
Yes.
And when you said YouTube and you said 2007, I'm doing the math with my fingers. And I'm guessing that probably would have put you somewhere in your like 10 or 11 years old, maybe?
11 years old, yes.
Yes. So at 10 or 11, you're deciding that YouTube is a future or a potential future career choice.
Yeah, and honestly, where it started with me was that I was a huge fan of film, and I just liked making videos, no matter what they were about. Like my cousin and I used to make all these really silly home videos, but it kind of was like, I love making videos and I love cars, so YouTube was like the perfect platform to put those together. So it's stuff that I would have done anyway on my own time, and I'm like, I can video this and then share what I learn, or what I learn what not to do most of the time with the world.
So that wasn't my official question. I just had to bring that out. So my question for you is that we generally like to ask our guests, about your inspiration to getting into cars. Obviously, we are a car niche, and this is what we do. You mentioned your dad, and you mentioned the war a lot. Like, I assume your dad is probably the reason why you're into cars like you are today. But tell us a little bit about that story and how you and your dad relate with cars.
Okay, and it all, like, my dad, he was basically like the same way. I mean, growing up, his first truck was his first vehicle altogether he bought when he was, I believe he said he was 14. You paid $50 for it. It was a Dodge long bed, and it was like a 72 or 3. So ever since then, he started early, just working on stuff, and that really resonated with me because I grew up around Challengers, Cudas. He has a Literate Express he restored, and he's had it as long as I've been alive. He's got a Challenger Dakota sitting out back, and I grew up around this stuff. So I'm like, there's really no way that I could avoid it. Honestly, it was everywhere I turned, and I was always with him right there. Every time he'd go to look at a car, or go to buy a car, work on a car, I was just right there on his heels, watching him do stuff, and I was trying to pick up what I could. And I remember it's a funny story. It kind of relates to my first car, and I actually bought it back here recently. But when I was 10 years old, he was like, I found this car, and you've been wanting to kind of learn on your own too. And he said, what if we go look at it and we'll go see what you think? And we drove out there in his Little Red Express, actually, and it was a 74 Dodge Sport, 318, right at 340 in the time. And it was pretty rough, but the guy wanted $600 for it. And, being 10 years old, I don't have that kind of money. But I borrowed it from my grandmother, actually, and then I paid her off over years of yard work. So that's really how I got my first car. Was she loaned me the money, and then I was able to pay her back. It was like $20 per every couple of weeks or something like that. And over time, I was able to get enough money to pay her back for it. But that's how I kind of got started. Was he's like, so these are the basics that you have to do. We sat down, and he donated an engine that is a little 318, and he just pulled out of a car, sold the car, and he's like, I'm in this engine for free. You can have it. And he showed me how to put a water pump on, showed me how to put a fuel pump on. We painted the engine, showed me how to put an intake on, did all the basic stuff. And then, he did a lot of it, obviously, but I learned a lot of hands-on. And that's really kind of where it started. And from then it got worse and worse, as you can tell. It stemmed from there.
Well, and that's the type of thing you talk about, having a father like that interested in the hobby that of course I'm jealous of. My father, he was like one of 8 kids, and his parents were so farm family, and his parents were convinced, like, every kid kind of had their talent. So his older brother was the mechanic of the family. My dad more got the carpentry skills, and I'm not like I don't know. I fell in love with cars, but I never really had anybody who had that experience level, 30 years my senior. So hearing that, like, that's such an awesome opportunity, because it helps you fine tune those skills, at an early age, like 14, like you are. So when it comes time to do junkyard revivals, or, cars have been sitting for 20 years, you know a little bit about, okay, well, if this thing's not starting, what's it going to take to get it running? So tell us about, that's such a huge part of your channel, these revivals episodes. What is it about the revival that, like, really I guess gets you going? Like what's the drive, what's the ambition, what is it that keeps you hungry on those revival episodes?
I think it's just because it's the challenge, because people think that it's like there's no way you'll be able to make that truck or car run. Like, for instance, the rump, if you guys are familiar with it, it's my 70. What year is that truck? It's a 73. It's a Dodge short bed 318 3-speed, and it was sitting in a junkyard. And the guy called me and he said, "Hey, I got a truck down here you might be interested in." And this was way back, and it was like 2017 at this point. He wanted $500 for it. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of money. So I sat on it, came back a year later when I had the money, bought the truck. And I guess it's more of like, what is it that we can do with this truck? What is the capability? Start from the bottom here and just see what is the story on this truck. And a lot of it is really just finding out, why did it get parked, and just the challenge of actually making something out of nothing is what's really fun, because not only is it rewarding for me, but I feel like it's rewarding for the viewers too, because they can go out and say, well, Dylan did it, so why can't I do it? And a lot of times people are like, you didn't find that in the junkyard. You parked that truck there. That was honest, everything. That was legit. I put that camera right there and turned the key, and it fired up. And that's what's fun about it. It's not always that easy, but I think that a lot of it is more of trying to, on top of, self-success and getting the vehicle to run, but also to kind of inspire others to do the same thing.
Yeah, we're just going to take a quick little pause, Dylan, just to recognize that there are some more people and a lot of first-time names that we haven't seen come into the show. So welcome to all you guys who are there. If you're listening to us after on the podcast, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of the Car Guy and SIXFAN show. Dylan, you had mentioned that being rewarding with these with these type of videos that you're doing, and because we are a little bit of about helping other YouTubers and also helping ourselves as far as trying to grow our channels too, those types of revival videos tend to be quite rewarding for your YouTube channel as well. When we talked to Kevin over at Junkyard Digs, and he said the same thing. It's a very fine line to be able to get in there and do all of these revivals and hit that market with the people who want to see that. I'm one of them. Every time you do one, Kevin does one, or Luke, or you guys have done quite a few of them together. Tell us why or how you kind of stumbled on that to be a great success for your channel.
Well, and bouncing back to what I said earlier about that Charger and the Warlock, that was kind of where it really it took off, and it clicked in my head. I'm like, something is really here. There's like a little bit of lightning in a bottle right here with this niche of an abandoned vehicle just sitting there. And I think that it was really kind of not a thing back then. So we were really on the forefront of, you see them all over the place now, but we were really on the forefront of seeing those revivals. And I guess what kind of drew me to it really was the fact that I had been watching my dad do this for years. Okay. He was dragging garbage out of the weeds for years and making it run. and he was just doing it for fun. And I'm like, let me just bring a camera along with us one time. And it was like night and day. And like, wow, this is overnight. We just had like this huge video blow up over well, I mean, it was a 69 Charger, so that did help a lot. But, you know, like that. And for instance, we did a 68 Dodge truck long bed. It's actually on the other side of this door right here, sitting on top of a 1-ton Cummins frame. But that's besides the point. That truck really blew up, and I didn't think it would. You know, it's just a long bed 68 slant 6 Dodge truck. There's nothing really special about it. But I just like, this is such a cool story. The thing sat for so many years. It was sitting in here in somebody's backyard. And, you know, it's kind of a hard market to get into. But once you get into that, it's very rewarding because people want to see stuff like that. I think it's like, it's just really interesting because people like a good story. You know, they like to have something that catches them and really hooks them. And I think that these abandoned after so many years, will it start? Will it run? It's like, well, will it really run? You know, is there really a chance that it'll run? And, you know, people are kind of like, well, I got to click and find out. So I think that's really where the draw is.
Well, again, I just want to echo what Jason said earlier. We have a lot of first-time viewers, so thank you guys for joining in, and I hope you're enjoying the conversation. This is Jason and I enjoy hosting this show, and so if you're having fun, think about maybe sharing this link on your social media platforms, get more people in here. But if you are just kind of joining us midstream, well, just so you know, every $1 that's spent in a super chat gets you an entry into winning this 50 Series Delta Flowmaster muffler. But Dylan, you talked about that truck, the long bed Dodge with the slant 6, and you know, that's one of the things that kind of helped me connect with your channel at a deeper level. I sent you a shirt about the slant 6 there. Oh, I don't know how many months ago it was, but I know the Challenger is kind of the big project right now, dropping that nice, beautiful Hemi behind your left shoulder there into it. And I really want to ask you a question about if you're going to paint the car or not. No, I'm just kidding. But if I'm not mistaken, I think you had bought this 4-door sedan. I think it's 330, I think. But you know, I connected on that level because what my channel is about is I want people to think of this hobby of hot rodding as accessible. You know, like, don't think that you have to have $30,000 in the bank to build your 69 Camaro. Like, no, just go find something old, build it, personalize it, learn some lessons, you know, then scale yourself up, and eventually someday you can build that mega awesome hot rod. So again, the Challenger I know is kind of the primary focus right now, but looking forward, what's the outlook for the Dylan McCool channel kind of between here and the end of the new year?
Well, hopefully the Challenger's done by then. I really hope. I've got a lot of stuff lined up. I've actually jumped brands here in the near future. I've got a Ford Maverick that I'm working on, an inline 6 too. So there you go. It's going to be a fun little project. The engine's locked up, so it's prime. But other than that, I like you talked about that little 4-door. When you sent me that shirt, you're talking. I'm assuming you're talking about the '67 Dart with a slant 6 that I had started to do a short series on, as far as like the budget restoration. And that video kind of fell off, not because partly because the Challenger started to pick up, but also because I lost 2 cylinders on the engine. So I'm like, I can't work on it anymore until I get this Challenger done. So I actually did a compression check on that engine, and it dropped 2 cylinders. I had low compression in 2 of them. So I'm like, well, dang, I don't know what to do now. So that's why that one's kind of been pushed to the side. But that one's going to come back. I've got a small block turbo build set up that I'm wanting to work on. I've got like a factory RV turbo that I want to put in some kind of truck. I actually did another video with Junkyard Digs in Vice Grip Garage, and we got a long bed Dodge running, and it's a 360 2-barrel, a nice little truck. And I went all the way to Iowa for it and brought it back. So he's going to do a video on his channel, and then I'll come back and, you know, do some stuff on mine, just more Dodge content, and then a little bit of Ford content. So it's going to be fun.
So you mentioned Vice Grip Garage, and I've been trying to touch base with Derek to get him on the show as well, so that we can kind of have that trifecta of him and you and Junkyard Digs. And Maybe some night we'll have a big party sometime in the future with everybody. But anyways, one of the things that we kind of coined the phrase of is offbeat hot rodding as part of, or actually I give that credit to Grant, but we kind of absorbed that. And what we mean by that is basically what he said. We're taking vehicles that don't have to be the Camaros, the Corvettes, the Mustangs of whatever, and put huge budgets into them. This is taking something that's maybe a little bit older, rear-wheel drive, and kind of moving on. And so when we try and do our little thing, that's why I've got a Cordoba. That's why I did that long before I ever had a YouTube channel. Nobody soups up Cordobas. This idiot does, but nobody else does. So for all the people who might be watching tonight, all 12 of them, how would you describe? I'm kidding. How would you encourage somebody to start looking for that first project? Just as far as what to look for, budget wise, things to consider.
Well, really be realistic. Honestly, like be honest with yourself. Like, what can you afford? Like, I'll use that Dart for an example. I was going to go down the line and say, I set a cap for $2,500 because that's all I have. And I was going to break down each part that I put in that thing. But in gearing towards at least a channel, it's really, if you're passionate about it, then you can make really anything work. I mean, people were watching, like I said, me pull a Dodge truck out of the field just because I liked it. If you're enthusiastic about what you do, it really does help a lot. But for me, looking for a project, I look for, okay, do I know how to work on it? Do I have spare parts for it? And if you say no to both of those, then, well, what do I need to know? What do I need to learn? And, it's really hard to put my blinders up basically to all the projects that you see around. But what I like to do is I like to just check for, are parts available for it? Is it attainable to find stuff? Is it a catalog car? That's Thunderhead 289. He coined that one for me. He says, is it a catalog car? Meaning, like, can you go out to, like, can you find parts for it? Is there a catalog you can buy for this vehicle? Because that helps a lot, especially for a first timer. If you're wanting to learn on something, you want to be able to find something that's budget and cheap to get into. So that's where I really start is, and again, I started with the Dart Sport. That's a catalog car. I would sit there at night, like just all night long, flipping through the pages of a Classic Industries book, just going through it. Like, this is what I like. This is what I want to do with it. And, that makes it a lot easier, but, be realistic and don't worry what other people think about your vehicle, because I've let that happen to me, and it'll really get you wrapped up in what you're doing, and it'll make you not want to do something. But a lot of the times, I like to do stuff just to make people like question, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like painting this thing blue. I got a lot of people, like, they like it, but they're also like, what are you thinking? Like, well, makes you wonder, right? So that's, just do what you're doing. Make the car an extension of yourself. Make it what you want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between just a flat out stupid idea and something that is kind of going to get the internet buzzing,
Oh.
So, like, yeah, kind of like me. I totally understand it. Nobody gets why I'm throwing a 2-barrel carb back on the top end of my 302 build on the Fairmont. But, you mentioned catalog build, and that's exactly what the Fairmont is. I knew I could get a bunch of secondhand parts from Fox Body Mustang guys. And so I think you're right. I think there's a very critical step in, if you're going to pick something a little left of center, make sure that it's that the catalog car, I think, is a very good term that Thunderhead came up with. But, well, Dylan, one of the things we wanted to touch base on before we went live, you dropped a little hint about a Dodge Colt. So speaking of maybe the opposite of a catalog car, sounded like you had a pretty good story to tell the crowd about a little Dodge Colt. So we'll let you dip into that.
Well, before we started, we were talking about Grant had actually found a Cordoba, and you said it had changed hands, and I was kind of bouncing off that about a vehicle changing hands that I saw for sale, and it was a Dodge Colt, like a 77 or 78, and it looked like a legit drag car. Okay, it had like if you look at like a think of like a Sox and Martin drag car. You know, it's got the red, white, and blue, the metallic paint. It's beautiful, beautiful looking car. It was that. I mean, it looked immaculate. And it was sitting in a storage building, and the description said, you know how they'll say free, and you're like, oh, they don't really mean free. And you're like, yeah, whatever. He's just saying that so you offer him whatever. He's just wanting, they make a serious offer or whatever. I read the description. He says, I want it gone. First come, first serve. It's free. No joke. And it was already like, it was on slicks. It had like the skinnies up front, the bullet holes, no engine or transmission, but it was a setup for a V8. And it was immaculate. Just like had an inch of dust on it though. And I was tore up about this car. I was sending it to everybody. I was like, I got to get this car. I called the dude. I messaged him. And I kept hounding this guy, and he never would answer me back. And the next day, he finally calls me back. I'm like, look, man, I will come get this car right now. And he's like, well, I've already got somebody here loading it up. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And the car was gone. A few months later, actually this week, I found that car again on Marketplace, and I'm like, I know that car. I know that car right there. And it's all cleaned up, real pretty, real nice. And he's got the wheels sitting out front. And I'm like, that's the same car that I lost out on. I'm like, wonder what he's asking for it. And he's wanting $2,800 for it. And I was very tempted. And I'm like, man, I know what you paid for it. So it's kind of hard for me to do that. But it's funny when vehicles change hands. If you're on Marketplace or Craigslist or like that enough, you'll see stuff like go through cycles. Somebody buys it here, ask more over here. So it does. It's funny how that stuff works out.
So I can't help but having to go back through the chat just for a quick second. And Jonathan W., I think Grant caught this as well, had made a comment. We were talking about, getting your first car, your first hot rod car, or whatever. His statement was to save money, run from Mopars. And he can't be any more correct. When it comes to doing anything on a Mopar, it's twice the price of a Chevrolet, especially when it comes to motor work. But at the end of the day, we all can relate to something when it comes to spending way too much on something. So we've kind of gone through the show as far as what the question and answer period is, Dylan. So what we're going to do now is we just kind of want to dive into a little bit of what we classify as tips and tricks for anybody that's watching us right now that has a YouTube channel. And if you're trying to grow that channel, you're trying to gain some followers, or you're trying to gain some success, no matter what that looks like, we want to put that on you, Dylan, to any tip or trick that you may have for creating a successful YouTube channel for somebody who might be listening right now.
Well, a lot of it is luck. So don't think that there's a formula that you can follow. I mean, there's a lot of it has to do with right place, right time, and with the YouTube algorithm changing constantly. I mean, it'll pick up videos that I posted, like for instance, this Challenger. It picked up part 8. I don't know why, it just picked it up. So getting started is tough. You want to follow trends to an extent, but you want to make it to where it's your own. So you want to have something that you can market for yourself. And I guess you'll see stuff popping up on bandwagons and stuff like that. But the revival stuff is huge right now. It's really a saturated market, so it's kind of hard to get into. But back when I started, like I was talking about in 2016, there was nothing like that. And I was just trying to, because I thought, hey, this is cool. Let's see if we can make something out of this. And I'm not saying that I was the first one to do it, but I was really early on. And I guess that's what it really is that you've kind of got to be ahead of the curve and seeing, what about what am I capable of doing can I make that's different than anybody else? And I know that's kind of cliche of like be yourself and all that stuff, but it really does resonate because it is hard to start a YouTube channel, and it's hard to get to that next level. But if you're consistent, if you're pleasant to watch, if you're really connecting with your audience, if you're tapping into that demographic, that the younger demographic that's really able to sit down and watch your videos and understand it, then yeah, I mean it works. And it's, I hate to say a lot of it is luck, but it is. And just being on the leading edge of stuff, always looking for stuff like this is popping up over here, this is popping up over here. What are they doing that's making their channel grow? What are they doing that's making them a lot bigger than others? What's pushing them above everybody else? So like I said earlier, car review channels were huge back then. They were giant. And like that dude in blue, I watched his stuff all the time. And I'm like, this guy is who I want to do stuff like him. But then by the time I actually got into the review stuff, it was over. Nobody really watched it anymore. I mean, there's a select few who still can, but with the trends, it was like there's a hole now. And then just like with Roadkill, when they left, it left like a vacuum for all these channels to want to have to fill that void, because they were huge. They were number one as far as like doing the stuff that I was doing. Even though we might have been there really early on, they just really took it and ran. So seeing things like that, that's really kind of what happened with the revival stuff, is that when Roadkill left, it was just us left there to kind of fill that void. So I guess just starting out is don't get discouraged. Don't allow negative comments, poor reviews, little interaction. Don't let that put you down. Don't let that keep you from pushing forward and doing more videos, because if I let that do that to me, I would not be sitting here talking to you guys today, because I was in that exact same boat. We all had to start from absolutely nothing. And don't compare. Biggest thing, don't compare yourself to others as far as numbers. Don't compare yourself as far as analytics go. So-and-so's got more subscribers. Well, so-and-so's got more views. Don't get wrapped up into that. Focus on your community. Focus on what you can do to better your little environment that you've got working on. Like the giveaway you guys are doing. That's cool. That's really cool. And stuff like that gets people engaged, that bridges the gap between you and the audience member. So just stick with it and don't allow yourself to be discouraged, basically.
Well, you talk about the starting, like don't get discouraged out of the gate, and I think that's a great segue into one of the questions that came in. Which, by the way, we'll take a quick pause and say, at this point, guys, get your questions in for Dylan. We'll try to get as many of them as answered as possible. But via super chat, Nate Lipinski asked, and you can find him on Instagram at I just had it up. It was Nate63 Falcon. Yeah, no, Nate's plural. Nate's 63 Falcon on Instagram. He's got a really awesome 63 Falcon project he's working on. Pulled out the inline 6 recently. He's going to drop a 351 in there. I think he's only like 16 years old. So really cool opportunity. But he had asked the question. He's been thinking about starting a YouTube channel for the Falcon, and any specific suggestions. And honestly, I think the most basic one is literally just start. Everybody gets really like worried about you mentioned it earlier in the episode, Dylan, how nervous you were in front of the camera. And it's like, look, if you're worried about making the first 5, 10, even 15 videos perfect, you're not. They should be your worst videos, like, because that means you're not getting better. So just put it out there as big of a train wreck as possible. In one of the guys I follow, of Think Media, Sean Kinnell, he will gladly share his first video and how lame it is. I will gladly point people to my pilot episode. Go watch it. And if you're worried about getting started, go watch that. Hopefully you can make it to the end, because it's boring as hell on a webcam. Like just get out there and do it. So Dylan, I appreciate all the things you said there. But again, we want to recommend everybody drop your questions in. This is the part of the episode where we start talking about kind of channel updates looking forward. So at the moment, we'll send it over to Jason. Where do you want to go with a little channel update?
Yeah, so if you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I posted a picture of a specific vehicle. Looked like a Chevelle. A lot of guys commented on what they thought it was. And it's actually a GMC Sprint, a 77 Sprint, which is basically the GMC version of an El Camino. That's a good friend of mine here locally who just recently picked up that car. And he sent it into the shop to get a little bit of work done to it, and we've got it there. So he's given me permission to do a video on it, and drive the car once we get a few of the safety things looked after on it. So that's going to be something that's coming up on the channel. Is a kind of a little bit of a review of a 77 GMC Sprint, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. Grant, we know that Grant is taking a little bit of a break until he gets a few things kind of centered up on the old Fairmont there. But Grant, tell us a little bit about some of the things that we can expect in the next episode of Straight Six Fan.
Well, I'll say we have a channel, or we have an update about the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show, which we'll drop later. We're gonna twist around the schedule a little bit. We do alternate every other week, but next week will be a little bit of an exception. I will say channel update. I did get channel Generation 2 channel stickers in. So if you want one, Instagram direct message me. I'd be gladly, I'll send you one for free. The cost is a channel shout out on your YouTube channel. But in the meantime, because I am finding it a bit of a grind to get enough progress done on the Fairmont and film, I feel like I can't really battle both right now. Follow me on Instagram. I will give short updates on Instagram. You can find me at Straight Six Fan over on Instagram. That'll be the best way to kind of wet your palate between now and then. Dylan, what do you have coming down the pike for your channel?
Well, this Hemi right here will hopefully be in the Challenger here in this next video. That's really what I'm gunning for. Had to do some modification to the cross member, get my oil pan on, get some accessories. I had to grind a whole mounting tab off the AC compressor, so that was not fun at all. But yeah, that's the next goal. Hopefully, after I get off here, we're gonna test fit this engine and see if it'll go in.
So we had a question come in from Auto Alley, who is a Mustang girl, and she had asked a question and wanted to know whatever happened to the pretty blue Mopar that they revived with the tan door.
Oh, the petty blue? Yeah, the satellite. Yes. So, fun fact, Dad actually ended up buying that car after the video. Probably, I'd say a year and a half later. The guy that owned it, he's a collector, and he didn't want to sell it, and it's his car. He has that right. And we bugged him, and we kept bugging him. It's like, hey, do you want to sell it? And eventually he did sell it to Dad. And the plan is currently he drove it home. We got it back running, drove it home in about 10-minute drive. The suspension, the wheels are pointing like this. So, you do this little motion right here. They don't cooperate. They're not on speaking terms. So that's not fun. The suspension rebuild, I actually, for Father's Day, got Dad the whole suspension rebuild kit for that car. And we're going to drop a nasty big block in it, and the rear end's making an awful noise as well, so 8 3/4 in the back. So it'll be a lot of fun. So basically, it's just going to be a petty tribute car. I think it's the perfect candidate.
Yes, I am. We also had a question come in from El Camino Kyle. He says, I'm looking to build my first engine, and I'm pretty damn intimidated. Where's the best place to look when I get stuck or don't know where to turn?
The internet.
Amen. YouTube.
But get a repair manual, like an old Chilton's or Haynes repair manual. They will have so much information that you will not know what to do with it. But if you get like a factory repair manual, you'll find like torque specs. You'll find all sorts of procedures on how to do stuff. Have one of those handy for your vehicle, not just the engine, but also everything you have to do with that vehicle. Repair manual is your friend. But yes, the internet will pretty much have what you need to know, especially for like a very common engine.
Yeah, I'll second that. I will say one of the first things I bought for Project Blow Fairmont was like a 1980s version of the Chilton's manual for all Fairmonts, and that's bailed me out on a couple different occasions of things. Anything from a vacuum diagram to just kind of comparing carb stats. We are going to lock our questions at the moment, but we did get one last question in there.
Reiterate the Chilton. Sorry.
Yes.
This thing, you don't realize how many engines this is put together. This is copyright 1984, so it's older than I am. But
and the watercolor rendering on the front is what I love the best.
Challenger. It's got a Challenger on the front. It's like it was meant to be.
Well, we did get one last question in. We've kind of put a lock on questions, but our buddy King Eric, the greatest of all. Oh, he was asking another commenter, I guess. Of course, he loves his Cougars, but Dylan, I guess I'll warp the question into you have a Ford coming down the pike. What is the well, you mentioned that earlier in the episode, but I guess we'll let King Eric, the greatest of all's palette, one last time. Tell us a little bit more about the Maverick project, and then after that, we'll let Jason close this out.
Okay, it's a 70 Maverick. It sat for 24 years, or no, I'm sorry, 26 actually, 26 years. And the guy bought it new, had it shipped over to Germany while he was in the Air Force, and brought it back. And when he moved to, he's just down the road from me. And I remember driving past the car, riding the bus to school when I was a kid, and seeing that car in the backyard. So I always had my eye on it. And just a couple weeks ago, I asked him, "Hey, will you sell this thing?" He's like, "Well, I guess." And he sold it to me. And it's an inline six that's locked up. It's an automatic transmission, but the interior, it's dirty, but it is absolutely complete and immaculate. It's beautiful. It's black interior. It's a factory yellow car. It's not a grabber car, but it is a factory yellow car. And actually, I was running a little behind so you could get to this live stream, and it's because I bought these. I don't know why I needed them, but I bought these wheels right here because I thought they were cool. And these are like some knockoff. I really don't know what they're some knockoff brand, but these are they're 4x100s, but I've got adapters to make these fit that Maverick, and they're 9 inches wide. So I don't care what I have to do, I'm going to make these fit somehow. I don't know what, but we'll see. But yeah, it's basically just going to be let's see if it'll run and drive and be a survival project.
Well, Dylan, that's going to kind of be it for tonight's show. We really appreciate you being a part of it. We taking the time. We know that you're really busy and you're trying to get that car put back together so you can actually get some drive time in it. Before we do leave, I do want to say that as most of you guys know who follow us on a regular basis, I was planning a trip down south this summer. Actually, my 2-week vacation starts at 5 o'clock tomorrow, and that likely would have been when I probably would have left to head south. And Dylan was very gracious to allow me to come down for a visit. And I was hoping that maybe we could get to wrench on something together. But due to everything that's going on around the world, of course, that trip got canceled. I'm hoping maybe to do something again next year. So, Dylan, thank you for being open to that and maybe putting some sort of a collaboration together. And hopefully we'll be able to do that sometime. And again, thanks for being a part of the show tonight.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so as we get ready to close this out, we want to thank everybody who has joined us in the chat. We had quite a few people, new people in there, and if you're following along on a regular basis, thank you for being regulars and jumping in and watching us every week. If you haven't yet subscribed to Grant's channel, now's the time to do that. Next week, we'll be back on my channel for the Car Guy and SIXFAN show, and if you're not a part of that, is it next week?
Well, we talked about this.
We did.
I'm going on
ignore
vacation,
me.
2 weeks from now. So I guess a little peek under the covers. So 2 weeks from now, we are going to have Dirt Lifestyle Nate. He used to be part of the Bleep and Jeep network, and then he went out on his own and just kind of blew up. And so a fantastic fabricator 2 weeks from now. And because I will be on vacation that week, I worry about the reliability of whatever internet connection I could get at a coffee shop during this COVID-19 world that we live in. I might be doing it out of a rental camper van. We don't know. So we would feel more comfortable knowing that Jason is the host that week. So next week, we're swapping spots. You'll get 2 weeks in a row of straight SIXFAN hosts in the Car Guy and SIXFAN show. Next week's a legacy episode. We pick up part 2 of the history of AMC, and I'll shut up now.
Well, thanks for the clarification. That's exactly the reason why there's 2 of us here, because once in a while, one of us screws up, and it's usually this guy. So, guys, again, let's get on to our vacation starting. And Dylan, again, get you back to work. And thanks, everybody, for being a part of the show tonight. We'll end it with saying, stay focused on the windshield, not the rearview mirror. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.